السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله ثم الحمد لله. الحمد لله كثيرا وسبحان الله بكرة وأصيلا. الحمد لله مالك الملك مجري الفلك مسخر الرياح فالق الأصباح ديان الدين رب العالمين. الحمد لله الذي أدعوه ولا أدعو غيره. ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء وخاتم النبيين وسيد الرسل أجمعين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. اللهم صل وسلم وزد وبارك وترحم وتحنن وتلطف على محمد وآل محمد كما صليت وباركت وترحمت وتحننت وتلطفت على إبراهيم وآل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. My respected brothers and sisters, the Honorable Dr. Subhani, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to take part in the remembrance of the greatest woman created by the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Indeed, it is a privilege to shed some light on the life and the legacy of the most immaculate, the mother of the Imams. And the status of Fatimah is not one which could be achieved and understood. We may sit and talk about the status of Fatimah, the virtues of Fatimah, but the essence of Fatimah to Zahra salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayha is not one that can fully be comprehended. However, I believe that when we gather in such important occasions, we must ask ourselves, this is the birthday of Fatimah, and we are gathered here in celebration. If I celebrate my birthday every year, and all my friends show up, and all those who love me show up, and they all give me the same exact gift every single year, I don't know how it's going to make me happy and proud. And so I would want new gifts. We all do. And that is why I believe when we gather to celebrate such auspicious occasions, we must gift ourselves with different narratives, different angles, different understandings that stem from the immaculate and blessed life of Lady Fatimah. And if we were to repeat the same stories and repeat the same traditions that we all know, I'm not saying there's no value in that, but I believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in discussing Fatimah, establishes the fact that she's great. She's magnanimous. Inna a'ataynaka al-kawthar. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, who had been given the status of the person who was able to achieve the closest proximity to the divine. وَالنَّجْمِ إِذَا هَوَى مَا ضَلَّ صَاحِبُكُمْ وَمَا غَوَى. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Najm speaks of the journey of Rasulullah. chapter 17, Allah speaks of the journey of Rasulullah, Isra and Mi'raj, which happened in the holy city of Mecca. Rasulullah goes from Mecca to Medina, from Mecca to Jerusalem, and from Jerusalem to the seventh heaven. And he sees the first, level of Jannah, and the second, and the third, and the fourth, and the fifth, and the sixth, and the seventh. And he speaks about this, what he saw there, what he saw in each one of those levels of Jannah and paradise. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, مَا ضَلَّ صَاحِبُكُمْ وَمَا غَوَى. Don't think that he's telling you something that he did not see, or he's making an error. No. Indeed, what he tells you, he saw. This was a journey that took place. And he led the salat with all the angels and all the prophets, right? And then he reaches, after the seventh heaven, he reaches an area, Jibreel is no longer moving. Jibreel is not accompanying him anymore. So he says, Ya Habibi Jibreel, are you going to leave me in this time? He says, Ya Rasulullah, لو دنوت أنملة لاحترقت. If I were to exceed, if I were to take one further step forward, I will be burnt. This is exclusive to you. This is exclusive to Khatamun Nabiyyin. This is exclusive to Habibullah Muhammad. So Allah says, فَدَنَا فَتَدَلَّى فَكَانَ قَابَ قَوْسَيْنِ أو أدنى فأوحى إليه الجليل ما أوحى ما كذب الفؤاد ما رأى. He became the closest proximity to God. What does that even mean? I don't know. It just means that this human, this creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was given a chance, was given a close proximity of understanding the essence of the divine like no other human being. Right? And Allah فَأَوْحَى إِلَيْهِ الْجَلِيلِ مَا أَوْحَى. What kind of revelations were given to Rasulullah? Allah does not per se put a favor onto him there. He does not say this was an abundance of giving to you, Ya Rasulullah. But when he speaks in a short but very compelling chapter, he says, إِنَّا أَعْطَيْنَاكَ الْكَوْثَرِ. We've given you the Kawthar. فَصَلِّ لِرَبِّكَ وَانْحَرْ. Praise to Allah. Thank Allah. Glorify Allah. And from Fatimah salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayha, every aspect of her life, every dimension of her life is a Kawthar, is an abundance. I don't agree that the only tafsir that comes to mind of Fatima is the fact that she has many children around the world today. Yes, she does. The progeny of Rasulullah that are in the millions. And by the way, the 23andMe, the genetic 23andMe, has now a special code for the Sayyids. So if you're a Sayyid and you do your DNA test and you are a real Sayyid, they have now, because the numbers are so large, they have a number for their DNA that starts with ADN, I believe, Adnan, that traces back to Adnan, the grandfather of Rasulullah. So this is a fact, that Fatimah al-Zahra salawatullahi alayha is the continuation of the lineage of Rasulullah. But that's not the only Kawthar. And I want to talk about something that may have not been discussed in the past. I don't know. But I find it to be extremely inspirational within the life of Fatimah al-Zahra. And that is academic movements that occurred in the name of Fatima. You see, when we look at Fatimah al-Zahra did not have a chance to teach for so long, to give lessons for so long, to be an icon for all the Muslims for so long. How many days after Rasulullah? 90 days, 95 days after Rasulullah. But she left us with a sermon, Khutbat Fadak. That sermon in itself is an encyclopedia for all scholars throughout time. The fiqh of Fatima, The philosophy of Islam has all been laid out to us by Fatimah al-Zahra and her sermon of Fadak. Yes, this is a happy occasion. But imagine this woman, Rayhanatu Rasulillah, Fatima bid'atun minni. He says, she is part of me. In another hadith, he says, shijnatun minni. She's an inseparable existence from Rasulullah. Inseparable, right? Now, the death of Rasulullah is the greatest calamity that has fell on the face of the earth, right? The greatest of God's creation has now his soul departed. Fatima, sallallahu is the only outliving child of Rasulullah. And this is a calamity for Fatima. This is a devastating time. But it does not stop there. The fact that the Khilaf has been usurped, the fact that Fadak has been usurped, the fact a little bit and she spent the majority. No. The traditions say that she gave Fadak. She said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ya Ibn al-Am, Ya Abul Hassan, you are in charge of Fadak. You go and you take the revenues of Fadak and you divide them in the way that you see fit. So Amir al-Mu'mineen, he was in charge of Fadak. And Fadak, according to some scholars, had a revenue in today's worth of $8 million a month. A whole village with its servants and Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi, when he would return, there would be lines, people from all over Arabia. He would go once a month. They would stand. The one that wants to buy a house, he would give him. The one that has a loan, he would give him. The one that wants to get married, he would give him. The one that has gone bankrupt, he would give him. The one that wants to start a business, he would give him. This is not poor people. Poor people were on the payroll. And then he would be left with nothing. Nothing. So he would go inside the masjid. Fatima, in many occasions, would call Salman, Ya Am Salman, go and look for Ali in the masjid. Tell him that your wife is waiting for you. Why is Ali in the masjid? Why is he not coming home? Because he's ashamed. He goes empty-handed, comes back empty-handed, gave all the gold and the silver and the revenue of Fadak to others. So when you look at her generosity, it's at a different level of inspiration. When you look at her resilience, she is the mother of Hussein. This is the resilience of Fatima that was installed in Hussein from a young age. So he's not intimidated. He's not afraid. He does not shake and tremble. يا علي غسلني في الليل ودفني في الليل ولا تحضر هؤلاء جنازتي. And she continues to remain steadfast, and until today Fatima has made an imprint in history that her grave is missing and we don't know where it is. Why? Because she wanted to make a stance. From every angle you look at her, she's a source of inspiration on a magnanimous level. But I believe that there is an underserved discussion surrounding the name of Lady Fatima. And that is a government, an establishment that was erected in the name of Fatima al-Zahra. What came to be known as the Fatimid dynasty. We gather and we celebrate Fatima al-Zahra and we read poetry about Fatima and we look at the hadith. But there was a government that was erected in the name of Fatima al-Zahra that ruled over 16 contemporary countries for 260 years. So you as a follower of Fatima, they tell you, come. Can you tell me a little bit about the Fatimid dynasty? Say, I don't even know what you're talking about. When were they? Where were they? Well, not every government that was erected is important for us to discuss, though unless you're a student of Islamic history, that it then becomes very important. But because it's special. Because I believe that today, possibly the majority of Muslim scholars around the world are indebted to that establishment. Around the year 300, after Hijrah, in the year, first of all, let's discuss a little bit of background of Islamic history. How is the Islamic history, how are the eras divided? Number one, it's the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam until his departure. This is how, if you were to look at the books of history, this is how it's divided. The time and the era of Rasulullah. And then immediately after the era of Rasulullah, towards Imam al-Hassan, and that is what's referred to as Al-Khilafah al-Rashida, the righteous caliphate. that began with Abu Bakr and ended with Imam al-Hasan. Some of them also include Muawiyah. Some of them also don't include Imam Hassan. They stop at Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen, but this is the gist of it. And then Bani Umayyah. Bani Umayyah, which some of them count with Muawiyah, some of them with Yazid, began a reign. And they no longer called it Khilafah, but they called it a dynasty, right? So this is how you see it mentioned in the books. And after Bani Umayyah, Bani al-Abbas. So in the year 132 after Hijrah, the Bani Abbas establishment was erected. Obviously, it was not full-fledged, but why? Why did people leave Bani Umayyah and shift towards Bani al-Abbas? Because people naturally were inclined to find that the Ahl al-Bayt must be involved in the affairs of the Muslims. And time and again, it was proven, it became a proven fact that they are more fit to lead. And the fact that they were so isolated, they were driven away in such a way, did not sit well with the Muslim community. Why should Ahl al-Bayt be so far away from governance, from scholarship? Why should they not be given freedom? And this began an establishment and movements. And there was a young man by the name of Abu Muslim Khurasani who began this movement in Khurasan, and then there was a revolution, and then another revolution under the leadership of what were known as Alawis, the children of Amir al-Mu'mineen, the sons of Ali ibn Abi Talib were known as Alawis, al-Alawiyun. And Bani al-Abbas, of course, they took their name from Abbas. Who was Abbas? Huh? The uncle of Rasulullah. So they wanted to associate the family. Of course, Rasulullah one day looks at his uncle Abbas, he says, Waylun liwuldi min wuldik. Waylun liwuldi min wuldik. My progeny will see a lot of hardship from your progeny, Abbas, his uncle. So Rasulullah foretold all those occasions. So they came with the slogan of Ar-Ridha min Ali Muhammad. Al-Muhammad must be pleased. Al-Muhammad must be respected. Al-Muhammad must be honored. And don't think that the only occasion was the martyrdom of Imam al-Hussein. Go read the story of Fakh. Miles away from Mecca. It is a more painful massacre than the massacre of Imam al-Hussein. Shahidul Fakh. Go read about him. Go read about Zayd ibn Ali. Go read about all the children from Ahl al-Bayt, all the movements from Ahl al-Bayt that occurred, and they were not just shut down. No. Zayd for 4 years, he was crucified. They did not bring down his body. 4 years. His body was gone. Birds would eat from his scalp. This is the son of Imam Zainul Abidin. So people were fed up with this. Bani Umayyah had an iron fist, and they were going after people. Whoever stands against them will become a lesson. So people slowly, small movements occurred, revolutions occurred, and they became more popular, and people wanted to go towards the Ahl al-Bayt. So Bani al-Abbas rode the wave, and they said, Ar-Ridha min Ali Muhammad. Revolutions occurred, Bani Umayyah collapsed, Bani al-Abbas came. The first thing that Bani al-Abbas did was what? Honor al-Muhammad? Put them in charge? No. Abu Mansur al-Saffah, this is his name, the bloodthirsty. He came, the first order he said every single Alawi kill him. Innocent, not innocent, involved, not involved, murder them. And Abu Muslim al-Khurasani, who actually single-handedly won the victories against the Bani Umayyah army, he invited him to come and join him in Hajj. And Hajj, when he joined him, he said to him, we're going to have a private meal together in my tent. And Abu Muslim Khurasani, he thought he was going to give him some prominent position, not knowing that he choked him, or in some historical accounts, cut his head off. And the beginning of the reign of Bani al-Abbas took place. Around the year 132, 133. Bani al-Abbas happened to be even worse than Bani Umayyah. And they continued until there was a need for other governments, for other leaderships. And it seemed like the ground was fertile. So people being disenfranchised with Bani Abbas looked to establish new governments. One of them was this dynasty, Al-Fatimi dynasty, that was established where? North Africa, in the North African continent. And they had a small city they established by the name of Al-Mahdiyah. Abdullah al-Mahdi was their first Khalifa. And he had given the authority to a man by the name of Abdullah al-Siqali, the commander of his forces. When, the government was established, he told him, I want you to establish a state, establish a government, establish a capital. He said, where? He said, well, close enough to Al-Mahdiyah, you should establish a city and call the city Qahira, Al-Qahira, which is what? Translated into Cairo. Cairo. So Cairo, its entire existence is indebted to the Fatimi dynasty. So he established Al-Qahira, Cairo, and then, Abdullah al-Mahdi transferred the capital city from the Mahdiyah to Al-Qahira. When he got to Al-Qahira, listen to this, is very important. What was his goal? Prior to this, you have Bani Umayyah ruling. Prior to this, you have Bani al-Abbas ruling. Prior to this, you have small establishments here and there in the Islamic territories. Now this is a chance for those who say, we are Shia. We are the followers of Ahlul Bayt. What would be their primary agenda? This is, something interesting. After years of being massacred and after years of death and murder and imprisonment, now you have the ability. What do? It's payback, right? It's payback time. But that was not the case. That was not the case. Yes, maybe today when you look at history, they tell you that Baghdad was the time that, Islam flourished. And it was so tolerant, and it was this and this and this. No, that's not the case. But in Abbas, there was no such thing as tolerance. They established Qahira, and the very first thing that they did, they said, let us establish a university. Because Shia Islam does not spread by the sword. Because Shia Islam spreads with knowledge, with ilm. So they established the University of Al-Azhar. Al-Azhar University's existence is indebted to Fatimah al-Zahra and the name of Fatimah al-Zahra and the followers of Fatimah al-Zahra. So they established Al-Azhar Mosque and Al-Azhar University in the city of Cairo. First of all, this was a unique phenomenon of a masjid. It was a masjid where every Tuesday and every Thursday, the sermon would be given to a Sunni imam, not a Shia imam. He would be the one that gives the sermon, while the Shia are in charge. But the Khalifa, the Fatimi Khalifa, he wrote letters to the greatest of Sunni ulama. First of all, he said the mufti of every sect in Islam should come to Qahira. We will protect him. We will take care of him. We will give him everything that he needs. And he will be given freedom. Freedom of expression, freedom of thought, freedom to write, freedom to research, freedom to teach. So actually the grand muftis of the Shafi'is, the Malikis, the Hanafis, the Hanbalis, the Sufis, the different schools within Shia Islam, I'll talk about this, they all went to Cairo and they were given a chair, what they call a kursi. Today, there is a chair of this and, such and prestigious universities. This began in Cairo, in the Fatimi dynasty. And they all had their ability to teach freely and to publish their books freely. And if there was a Sunni conflict, which happened occasionally, if you read the history of the Fatimid dynasty, then the Khalifa would interfere and say, don't do this, just live peacefully amongst each other. And there is an interesting point here I want to share with you. Keep this in the back of your mind. How many of you have heard of the Buwaydis? Al-Dawla al-Buwayhiyya, or Buwaydis? Well, it's very important for you to read about their history. This is another establishment, another government in the name of Ahl al-Bayt. This is an Ithna Ashari one. This is a Ja'fari one. Fatimi dynasty is a Ismaili one. Inshallah, we'll talk about this. But the Buwayhi or the Buwaydi Sultan or Shah, he chose Sheikh al-Mufid to be his representative, to be his mufti, to be the head of religious affairs. And there was many Sunnis also who lived in Baghdad. So he told Sheikh al-Mufid, you decide for all Muslims. And Sheikh al-Mufid was not an ordinary guy. So for the first time, the Aza of Imam al-Hussein was established, and Arba'in was established in the Buwaydis era, where people would come out in the streets, they do Aza, they give food, and they do the ziyarah of Imam al-Hussein, and then they walk. Some accounts say this began there. They walked from Baghdad all the way to Karbala. And the day of Ghadir. The day of Ghadir would be a day of celebration where the Buwaydi Shah, the king, the Sultan himself would celebrate, and people will celebrate, and they were given gifts. So there was a sheikh, the mufti of the Sunni community. His name was Baqilla'i. He came to Sheikh al-Mufid. He said to him, what are you doing? You're celebrating Ashura. You're also celebrating Ghadir. What about us? What do we get? So Sheikh al-Mufid said to him, what would you like? He says, well, you have to give us something, a day. So he said, okay, what day would you like? So he says, well, I have to think about it, but I didn't think you're going to agree. But now that you did, let me think about it. So he went and he gathered all the other ulama from the Sunni madahib, and they gathered and they said, they came back to Sheikh al-Mufid. And they said to him, we want to celebrate the day of the Ghar, in which Abu Bakr was in the cave with Rasulullah. This is a special day for us. So will you go and speak with the Shah of the Buwaydi dynasty? He said, no. Granted. You have a permission. He said, are you sure? He said, yes. The Sheikh al-Mufid would not go to the Sultan. The Sultan will come to Sheikh al-Mufid. This is the Hawza, the independent Hawza. The Hawza where the Shah attends to you. The king must come to the alim, not the other way around. Say, one of Bani al-Abbas wrote a letter to one of the Imams, I believe Imam Musa ibn Ja'far. He says, Malaka ya ibn al-Am, you're my cousin. Oh, my cousin, why don't you visit me? Right? Why don't you visit with us? He said to him, why should I visit you? Dunya, I don't want anything from the dunya. And the akhirah, you don't have anything from the akhirah to offer to me. So the Sultan came months later to visit Sheikh al-Mufid, and Sheikh al-Mufid told him, I have granted them this occasion that they're going to publicly celebrate. The Sultan said, yes, this is good. So when the followers of Ahl al-Bayt, and I want you to understand this, when they are in charge, they work with hikmah. They work in accordance to the teachings of Ahl al-Bayt. They work in accordance to the teachings of the Quran. You don't see that when the Shia community or the establishment is in control, then you find an iron fist of killing others, going after others. But no, there's freedom. They are also able to. And this is the teachings of Ahl al-Bayt. If anything else is done, is not in accordance with the teachings of Ahl al-Bayt. So the first thing that they did was they invited all the muftis. And this, by the way, shows the genius of the Shia community. It's a delicate point that I want you to understand. Why? Because when you put Nahj al-Balagha compared to another book, say this is a book by someone else, and this is Nahj al-Balagha. And those two people that will read those two books have no idea who the author is. In the end, they'll tell you, who's the author of this book? Nahj al-Balagha. Why? Because when you put a diamond next to a rock, the diamond shines more. Imam al-Sadiq salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi says, go to the east, go to the west, go north and go south. If you seek knowledge from anyone besides us, you will be regretful. Knowledge is with Al Muhammad. Perfect knowledge, genuine knowledge. So this is a genius that they brought all the scholars, and then they brought the scholars of the madhab of Ahl al-Bayt. They put the hadith of Ja'far ibn Muhammad, they put the hadith of Imam al-Baqir, they brought the supplications of Imam Zayn al-Abidin next to others. And automatically this created a movement. This made people think, well, if I were to choose, why shouldn't I choose the best of the best? And when it came to their fiqh, they did the same. When they did tafsir, they did the same. When you put the tafsir of Ahl al-Bayt next to the other tafsir, what are you? Amir al-Mu'mineen doing a tafsir of the Quran. He is the Quran. Who else can better teach the Quran than Amir al-Mu'mineen? So they created the University of Al-Azhar on the basis of number one, tolerance. Tolerance. People had the ability to express themselves, to teach. Other madhahib had freedom. Number two, on the pillar of inclusivity and pluralism. Inclusivity means what? Meaning everybody's included in this. And pluralism is the fact that other opinions, maybe I disagree with them, but I do not have the cancel culture. That if I don't like someone, I have to cancel him. This is wrong. If I disagree with someone, I must cancel him. This is wrong. Even if the person is saying something that is disturbing or unacceptable, right? Why? I say this. I say because if we accept the notion of cancel culture, we will also be canceled. When somebody doesn't like me and doesn't like what I have to say, in fact, if you look at history, who's been the subject of cancel culture? Ahl al-Bayt, the Shia community. So we, better than others, should understand the value of not associating ourselves with cancel culture. If somebody has some nonsense to say, let them say it. And by the way, this is an important topic. It's a relevant topic because today, with those whole Twitter discussions and canceling a few individuals from Twitter, reinstating them and so on and so forth, it's a completely different topic, but I think a very interesting on where do we stand Islamically? What is the position of our fuqaha from what's called cancel culture? And that, entails that you look into, for example, kutub al-dhalal and fiqh discussions, and it's a lengthy one. Number two, when it comes to their government, the Fatimid dynasty's government. Number one, it is established as a Shi'i government, but the madhab, the official madhab is what? Ismaili. So who's Ismail? Who are the Ismailis? What do they believe in? That's one. Number two, within their government, they did not give authority to only Ismailis, meaning if you're Ismaili, then you are the wazir, you are this, you are that. No. If you look at their history, they even had a Jewish, for example, minister of finances. They had Christians, they had Sunnis, based on merits. This is the teaching of Islam. Look at someone, give him a position based on merits. Not that he's my cousin, so I have to give him this position. He's my uncle, I have to give him this. He's my nephew, I have to give him this. And the people that have the ability, the skill, the knowledge, you put them aside because you may not agree with them, or you may not like them, or they may not subscribe completely to your vision. And you favor those who are close. Everybody did this. Everybody did this except one man. He says, my brother, who was 20 years older than me, Aqil, came. And I could see he was frail. And he says, I have so many kids, Ya Ali, and you are the Khalifa. For how long should I suffer? Give me a little bit of wheat, extra wheat. So Amir al-Mu'mineen says in Nahj al-Balagha to the Muslims that my brother Aqil wanted from your wheat. Meaning what? Baytul Mal. He wanted a little bit more from your belonging from Baytul Mal. So he could not see, he was old. 20 years senior to Amir al-Mu'mineen. Imam Ali says to him, sit down, Ya Aqil. And it was cold. Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib says, I put the al-faqar inside the fire. When it became hot, when it became red, I told him, Ya Aqil, khudh, take. Allahu Akbar. So there's a mu'jiza happening. Somebody, so he says, he brought his hand closer to al-faqar. He could not see. Then he says, Ya Ali, ma tasna'u bi. What are you doing? You're trying to burn me? I asked for wheat, and you give me fire? He says, Ya Aqil, ata'annu min naran hayya'aha al-makhluq lil'abah. You whine from a fire that was created by the creation for amusement, for me to warm myself. وَتَبْعَثُ لِي إِلَى نَارٍ هَيَّأَهَا الْخَالِقُ لِغَضَبِهِ. And you send me to a fire that the Creator has made for His wrath? This is Ali. That you do not favor people based on blood relation. You do not leave people away and isolate them because you don't like them. Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen had several daughters, many daughters actually. One of them, it seemed that she went to someone by the name of Aba Arif. He was the custodian of the treasury. He had the keys to the Islamic treasury. Abu Rafi', excuse me. And she had gone to him. She says to him, my father is the Khalifa, and it's Eid al-Adha, and I want to wear something nice. So I'm going to borrow something and give it back. So Abu Rafi', being a mujtahid, Abu Rafi' was a faqih, Abu Rafi' was a companion of Rasulullah, Abu Rafi' was a companion of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Abu Rafi' knew better not to make a mistake, makes her write a statement that she's borrowing it for 3 days and she will return this necklace. And she, signed it. So he put the thing and he gave her a necklace. Now his daughter comes to him, Amir al-Mu'mineen. She comes to the Khalifa. It's the day of Eid. And Amir al-Mu'mineen looks and he sees that she's wearing a pearl necklace. So he says, my daughter, my beloved daughter, where did you get this necklace from? She says, I borrowed it from Abu Rafi'. He said to her, on what basis did Abu Rafi' allow you to borrow this from Bayt al-Mal? She says, well, I wrote a statement and I, will be borrowing it for 3 days. And I wrote the statement and there's witnesses and so on and so forth. And Amir al-Mu'mineen leaves the celebration immediately. He goes inside Bayt al-Mal and he shouts, Ya Abu Rafi'. Abu Rafi', he knows, that something's wrong. So he comes to him, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, what's happened? He said, Ya Abu Rafi', what did you do? How did you allow my daughter to borrow this necklace? Says, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, I didn't give it to her. She's borrowing it. And she's wrote a statement and there are witnesses. He says, if the witnesses were not there, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. He says, if the witnesses were not there and the statement was not written, she would be the first woman from Bani Hashim with an amputated hand. And I would also amputate your hand, Ya Abu Rafi'. This is the money of the people. Even borrowing was not allowed for Amir al-Mu'mineen. Yes, when they speak of adlu alayh, this is adl, this is justice. You cannot fathom how just he was. He says, I am so just that adl and ansaf have left me with no friends. I imagine that maybe even his daughter was upset. Why is my father doing this? But Amir al-Mu'mineen, one quality that he had was لا يأخذه في الله لومة لائم. He did not fear anyone or care for anything or anyone besides Allah. So in order to establish something in the name of Amir al-Mu'mineen, this is how it's supposed to be. I'm not telling you that the Fatimid dynasty was flawless. No, they made mistakes. I'm sure they did. They were not fallible. But in comparison to Bani Umayyah, in comparison to Bani Abbas, they're not even in the same league. Then after they established Al-Azhar and after they established Qahira and they established Al-Azhar University, they began their expansions. Al-Fatimi dynasty was all the way from Syria to Sudan and the Red Sea, by the way. This is a huge territory for 260 years. How did they expand? With this, I'll conclude. I don't want to make it long. How did they expand? Again, they expanded in a way that resonates with me and you today. They hired and trained scholars to go to a territory, and the territory will automatically become thirsty to be part of the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt. Meaning, instead of sending an army and troops and marching towards them, no. They had scholars who knew debate, who had real ilm, who went there and they did not speak politics. They only spoke the words of Ahlul Bayt. People wanted this. They were thirsty for this. They wanted more and they wanted more. And that's how they were able to establish their territories without struggle, without war, without bloodshed. And then look at what happened and how they collapsed. Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi, the greatest criminal, this warlord that came, and they had the libraries of all the Muslims, Hanafi, Shafi'i, Maliki, ulama, and their ink, according to Rasulullah, is more sacred than the blood of the martyrs. They say that the Nile River turned black, and for 3 days you could not walk in Cairo because of the amount of blood in the streets. Destroyed every book, destroyed every library, burned it down, broke every single chair that belonged to every scholar. True terrorism. But look at history and how it changes now. Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi becomes a hero. A hero. Brothers and sisters, I would like to conclude with this. When we gather in the name of Fatima, let us take lessons. And those lessons should inspire us so much that we make real change in our community and in the future of our community. And let us make big decisions, bold decisions. And let that be an inspiration for us, inshallah, to leave a legacy of ilm and tolerance that represents the school of Ahlul Bayt. Salawatullahi wa salamu alayhim ajma'in. I want to say this, and with this I conclude. Fatimah al-Zahra, one of the happiest days of her life was obviously the day that she was married to Amir al-Mu'mineen. You know, she was asked and approached Rasulullah was asked and approached by every single Sahaba. This is a fact. Every historian has wrote that every single Sahabi, some of them older than Rasulullah himself, asked for the hands of Fatimah. Rasulullah would give every one of them the same answer, that her matter is not in my hand. Her matter is not in my hand. So Aqil, Amir al-Mu'mineen's brother, who was 20 years older than him, told him, Ya Ali, what are you waiting? You should go and ask for Fatima's hand. Amir al-Mu'mineen didn't. They say until one day Amir al-Mu'mineen was digging a well, and the first and the second Khalifa came to him. They said to him, Ya Ali, every single Sahabi has asked and Rasulullah had said no, so you should go. So Imam Ali went and he asked for the hands of Fatima, and you know the story. I don't need to retell a story for you, but there is a beautiful part that I would like to conclude with. And you know that Rasulullah accepted, and that the person who made the Aqdul Nikah of Fatima and Imam Ali was done where? Where? In the masjid? Where? Heavens. وَخُطْبَةُ الْعَقْدِ فَوْقَ الْعَرْشِ أَلْقَاهَا. That is the only matrimony that occurred in the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala زَوَّجَ النُّورَ بِالنُّورِ. Allahu Akbar. The light of Amir al-Mu'mineen and the light of Fatimah Zahra merges in the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is a auspicious day in paradise on earth, and everybody's happy. And then there was a tradition where 7 days after the wedding, the woman will go and they greet this young woman, right? And her mother is dead. Khadija is gone. Her father is Rasulullah, but she's still an orphan. And they went 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. The 7th day, when this finished, Fatima went to Rasulullah crying. And Rasulullah says, Ma Fatima, ma yubkiki, what's wrong? You're just newly married and you're crying. Is there something wrong with your husband? Or did you guys have an argument? She said, no, Ya Rasulullah, how can I have an argument? We didn't have an argument. Are you not happy with your husband? How can I not be happy with my husband? Of course I am happy with my husband. What is bothering you? She said, Ya Rasulullah, every woman that visited me told me that your father married you to a poor man, while he could have married you to this and this and this. Ali doesn't have anything. He's poor. Why did your father marry to a... So Rasulullah says, Ya Fatima, are you upset that you married a poor man? She says, no, Ya Rasulullah. But I just don't know why they hate him so much. And why they're here to destroy my marriage with him. Do they not know the merits of Ali? And this bond, of course, then created Fatima, created Hassan, and created Hussein, and Zainab and Kulthum, and changed the course of history and the earth forever. But may Allah bless the heart of that moment of Amir al-Mu'mineen when he put this wife, this beloved, into his grave, into her grave. I do not know how lonely he must have felt, not having Rasulullah and then not having Fatima. Salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. That is why Amir al-Mu'mineen knew who Fatima was. He knew the position of Fatima. So Imam Hassan says, 30 years later, we were sitting and just her name would come up and my father would sit and he would weep and he would weep and he would weep and he would cry for Fatima as if she has just died. It's not just because she was his wife. No, because Amir al-Mu'mineen knew who is Fatima. The essence of Fatima. The ruh of Fatima. the jism of Fatima, the body of Fatima, and the existence of Fatima. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we say to him, Ya Allah, listen to this, this is very important. Ya Allah, we don't know Fatima, but in that we ask you, in that which we attest and confess we don't know. And that's sirr in Fatima. And the true position, elevated position of Fatima that we're not aware of. We ask you in that we are gathered here in a sign of love, and a sign of devotion, and a sign of appreciation, and a sign of ta'ah to Lady Fatimah al-Zahra. Reward us for this in the most generous of ways. Reward us in this, in the most generous way that you have rewarded anyone that has celebrated the name of Fatimah. Meaning, oh Allah, if you have given gifts to the people in the name of Fatimah, we want you to give us that greatest of gifts that you have given in the name of Fatimah. We ask you, this is your generosity, and this is Fatimah. And we are here as beggars, and we beg you, and we beg Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and no other. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten the reappearance of the son of Fatimah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allahumma ja'al awaqib umurina khayra. Allahumma amitna ala al-Islam. Allahumma amitna ala al-Iman. Allahumma amitna ala wilayati Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma nas'aluka wa nuqsimu alayka بحق فاطمة الزهراء. Every man and woman in this majlis with a haja, give them their hajat. With an illness, give them cure. Oh Allah, we ask you in the name of Fatimah al-Zahra to make us amongst those who bring happiness and joy to the heart of our Imam. To give us the honor and the privilege of visiting the sons of Fatimah, including the Shaheed in Karbala. We ask you, Allah, to allow us to receive and be honored by the intercession and the shafa'ah of Fatimah. And with this most special dua, we conclude. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Allahumma kun liwaliyik al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan salawatuka alayhi wa ala abaih في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم أرنا الطلعة الرشيدة والغرة الحميدة واكحل ناظرنا بنظرة منا إليه وعجل فرجه وسهل مخرجه. اللهم إن حال بيني وبينه الموت الذي جعلته على عبادك حتما مقضيا فأخرجني من قبري شاهرا سيفي مجردا قناتي ملبيا دعوة الداعي في الحاضر والبادي. 3 times. العجل العجل يا مولاي يا صاحب الزمان. العجل العجل يا مولاي يا صاحب الزمان. العجل العجل يا مولاي يا صاحب الزمان. وإلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات والعلماء والشهداء وخدمة الحسين نهدي جميعا ثواب سورة المباركة الفاتحة مع الصلوات.